Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome into another edition of our Wednesday Zoom tasting with Martha Stoumen this week. We are super excited to have Martha. We are super excited to have all of you. It is a great pleasure to have her join us again. Martha was one of our first winemakers that we had last summer when everything got switched back to Zoom. And now that we are coming out of the COVID lockdowns, will be one of the last winemakers that we have on Zoom tastings. And then we were just talking about trying to figure out how we're going to create the hybrid tastings once we open up Flight Club. So welcome, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Great to have you here. Martha, thank you for being here. And we're going to go ahead and get started. We are on a little bit of a, not time crunch, but we do have a hard stop tonight. And so we're going to get started, and if anybody comes in late, they can catch up when we post it on Vimeo, which I know a lot of you join us on Vimeo after the fact, so welcome as well. Martha, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to let you run the rest of the tasting and tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself and who you are, what you do, why you do it, and what makes your wine so damn special.
Thank you. Thanks for the lovely introduction. Thank you all for being here. I'm glad I get to be the bookends of the Zoom world. Feels good, huh?
Absolutely.
To start being back in person with everyone. I mean, it's part of the reason I wanted to make wine in the first place. So,
Amen.
Yeah, a little bit of my backstory, and feel free to pour yourself the first wine as we're chatting. I know I probably will start pouring the post-flirtation white, get some in my glass. So, but yeah, I am a first generation winemaker in California. So didn't grow up with a winemaking family, but became very passionate about wine and winemaking after my undergraduate degree. I studied environmental science and Italian language. My grandfather is Italian, and the language kind of got lost as much does once they came over to the States. And so I was really fascinated with food and food ways and how food moves from one culture to another. And I wanted to try my hand at more traditional agricultural systems. So kind of like a full circle farm where we have, animals, vegetables, vineyards, kind of a polycultural system. And so I went to a small farm and learning center in Tuscany to do just that when I graduated from undergrad. And they put me in the vineyard and the olive orchard for 3.5 months. And I was just like a kid at play. And it's one of the most fun things that I've ever done. 15 years later, it's still one of the most fun things I have ever done is to make wine. It's incredibly rewarding. It's tactile. I mean, the smells, the tastes, it's quite literally intoxicating to make wine. And so after falling in love with it in Italy, I just thought, actually someone suggested to me who worked at the farm, or straight up asked me, they said, oh, did you come to this farm in order to train to be a winemaker as your career? And it hadn't even really dawned on me. If you don't come from a winemaking family or from that background, I didn't even think of it as a viable career choice. So many years later, fast forward, I did about 8 years of apprenticeships from that point forward, all over the world, particularly though in regions that are a little hotter, drier, to kind of prepare me for coming back to California and making wine. So yeah, I was in Sicily, I was in the south of France, I worked in Australia, and then some kind of fun, not quite so warm climate spots like the Mosel, and working with Riesling. I worked in New Zealand for a year. So really did a pretty big grand tour. Yeah. So every little experience I have kind of came together as an amalgamation and formed a lot of the winemaking style that I embrace today. So yeah, when I moved back to California in 2014, there were not a lot of people making what we call natural wines. It had been something that I had been exposed to for a few years and really had been working with some of the prominent winemakers over in Europe who are making natural wine. And the whole idea behind natural wine is that everything the grape possesses is all you need. You don't need to bring in, bags of yeast or bags of acidity or bags of tannin. So the whole idea is farm things really, really, really well. And then your grape is like a little winemaking kit ready to just be released. And that's my job. So my job is to kind of make sure things are going along a path that's creates a delicious wine at the end. And then also there's this idea behind natural wine that is, you have to really embrace kind of the impermanence of everything. So there's a philosophical side to it too, because no natural wine is the same year to year, even from the same vineyard. It really shows a lot of terroir. So a lot of what's going on with the climate that year, what's going on with the people who are making the wine that year, a whole slew of things. And so the idea is to really embrace diversity and not try to create a consistent product. So you really have to kind of have a paradigm shift in your head for that. So yeah. The first wine we're trying, and oh, great. Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about where I am. So I'm in Northern California. The winery I work out of a co-op, a shared space. So you can see me kind of climbing up on some tanks in this photo, and we do a lot of small batch production. But I share the space with 3 other winemakers, and it's a really fun time. It's like summer camp for grown-ups. It feels like every harvest that rolls around. We work very, very, very hard, but we all love each other. We have big, long lunches together, and we all kind of lend a hand with one another's wines. And we share a group of interns every year that come in from all over the world and help us make the wine as well. So that's where the Orange Arrow is, in Sebastopol in Sonoma County, just about an hour north of San Francisco. And then much of, I work with a few different regions. So I work north in Mendocino County. That's where I source the large majority of my grapes. And that's also where I lease 2 vineyards. And then a little bit just east of Napa and Sassoon, I have a small vineyard that I work with there. So just east of that orange. And then a little bit south of that body of water. Thanks for bringing the mouse down. A little bit further south, just below that water, a little further south, right there, right on the banks of that kind of. So just east of Berkeley, in a place called Contra Costa County, which is not as well known for some, but there are really historic plantings there. There are vineyards. I just went and visited a vineyard that was planted in 1880. The vines are still beautiful, still producing. So a lot of this white that we're trying, this post-rotation white, actually comes from the sandy soils right along that strait. And so it's really, so the Marsanne, Roussanne, and Muscat, I'm skipping down to the 3rd bullet point here, come from Contra Costa County. It's really, really sandy and hot. And then you get, because the water is coming in from the San Francisco Bay, originally from the Pacific Ocean, and it borders that hot sandy landmass, it's really, really cold water. So you get a ton of wind coming through there. It almost feels somewhat Mediterranean after being in Sicily, where you have warm land, but constantly cooling breezes. And then the Colombard comes from Rossetti Vineyard in Mendocino County, which is just north of Sonoma. And these are from this Colombard vineyard is really amazing. It was planted in 1942. So these vines are huge, old, gnarly trees, basically. And the idea behind the post-flirtation wine, I wanted to make this as kind of just a really lighthearted ode to California, and also as a wine. Wine culture has changed quite rapidly in the US since I started the business in 2014. But at the time, it was pretty irreverent to put what I did on the label in terms of like, this is a very serious wine. It's made from organically farmed grapes, really, really intensive farming. But it's not supposed to be, I wanted it to be welcome for everyone. So that was kind of the idea behind this, is let's create wine that everyone can drink, that is a little flirtatious, a little wink, wink. And it's not supposed to be something that we have to contemplate to death. It's for enjoyment. So I'm gonna have
I think you did a great job at that. It is delicious and it is so versatile. And I think it is exactly what you said. It's crowd pleasing, glug glug, white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this, I mean, we talked about pairs with lemongrass chicken, seafood, foods that are marinated in lime juice. It really has this really bright acidity. It has a little bit of Muscat Blanc in it. So there's a little bit of aromatics that show up almost kind of like grilled pineapple on the finish. And so it can hold up to really cold temperatures and you still get a lot of flavor from the wine. So I drank this at a picnic this last weekend, straight out of the ice bucket, and it tastes delicious. So yeah.
That's
awesome.
For a lot of the folks listening, a lot of the time we don't recommend doing that because you do lose things. So to have that flexibility is just such a benefit, because no matter what your situation is, it's going to be wildly drinkable, which is so nice.
Yeah, I was really happy to see the lineup that y'all chose, because everything can come like straight out of the fridge and be drinkable. The reds as well. They're all really good chilled. They're really good summery wines.
Yeah, I love this lineup too, Martha, and the color is absolutely amazing to me throughout the lineup. Just makes me think of drinking wine in the summertime.
Yeah, it is a little bit of like across the rainbow. So yeah. And then, for anyone out there who's more new to natural wine, you might notice a little bit of sediment in the bottom of your bottle. It's totally normal. Those are natural grape acids, tartaric acid, that precipitate out over time. So part of the idea of natural wine is also that, these little imperfections that are often corrected for are fine. So just to give you a little background, the way, conventional wineries would they would either seed it with a little bit of acid and try to precipitate out a lot, or they would chill the tank down to freezing temperatures for about 6 weeks. And for me, it's just, I think, a lot of unnecessary energy to be spent on chilling a wine for 6 weeks in a big tank. So we don't do it.
Well, and kind of on that note, I wanted to ask, so because you work out of an urban winery, you mentioned you are leasing vineyards, you're working with different vineyards. Do you pursue those vineyards, like, what grapes you want to work with, and so you find a vineyard that has those grapes, or are you working with a vineyard and seeing the creative ways you can utilize the grapes they already have?
Yeah. So for me, what comes first is how well is it farmed, but the grapes are very important as well. So a lot of the regions I work in are actually fairly warm climate. And the reason I sought out those warmer climate regions is because you get less mildew pressure or fungal pressure, which is the main problem that grapes have. It's the main reason that they're sprayed, is because of fungus. And so if you don't have the correct grape, and grapes have different susceptibility to this. So if you have a grape that has that's really kind of delicate, like Pinot Noir, for instance, is a really thin-skinned grape. It's really delicate and it has high susceptibility to mildew. And then if you put it in a cooler area, or that's kind of in the 70s, humid all the time, then you're going to get a lot of mildew and you're going to have higher inputs in the vineyard. So I'm always looking at that. But once you kind of pass through that filter of, is it farmed well? Is it good for the site? Then I'm an open book and I love experimenting. So Colombard's a cool grape that has been in California for a very long time. It's one of our more historic grapes. It was one of our pre-prohibition grapes that was planted. It's really versatile, beautiful acidity. It's related to Chenin Blanc, so you can get some honey notes if you leave it on the vine for a little bit. And then Marsanne and Roussanne obviously can handle hot weather. They're from south of France. So yeah, it's this whole blend though is very much, I've never come across a blend like this exactly. So a lot of it was wanting to co-ferment some stuff from the same vineyard, but also having Colombard that has the acidity, Marsanne and Roussanne bring a little bit of body to the blend, and the Muscat brings the aromatics.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Okay, I'm gonna pour myself some of this Nero d'Avola Rosato.
Mm-hmm.
So this comes from Benson Ranch in Ukiah, which is a small vineyard of about 5 acres that I lease and farm, and I've farmed since 2015. I was very, very, very excited to find that this vineyard existed in California. So I'd worked with Nero d'Avola in Sicily, where it's one of the primary grapes. Nero d'Avola to Sicily is like Zinfandel to California. It's planted in all sorts of different places, some great for the grape and some not so good. But I was interested in Nero d'Avola because it maintains this really high, beautiful acidity, even in hot weather. So it doesn't get doesn't fall apart and get flabby in warm climates. And it's also, speaking of mildew before, it has a really loose cluster, so it gets plenty of airflow. The grapes don't rot as easily, so we don't have to, this is like a very, very hands-off vineyard, and we dry farm it, which means that we don't irrigate it at all. So the vine roots have to go super, super deep in the soil to find water, since we don't rain in California from usually, this year has been particularly dry, but usually rain stops in April and doesn't start again until late November, early December. So there are many, many months with no rain. But yeah, it's cool. So the first time I brought this fruit into the winery, this is so it's an acidic grape already. And then this site itself, Benson Ranch, produces these really beautiful soaring acidities in the wines themselves. So I've worked with Nero d'Avola from other sites, and they're not quite this bright. I almost think of I don't know, the grapes and the wines that come from this site almost remind me of like ballerina, like very sturdy, very strong, but very lean and upright. And so the first year I picked this fruit, I thought I should leave it to macerate on the stems and skins overnight to kind of soften a little bit of that acidity, bring in a little more flavor. And this is what you get. So what we do is we foot tread this the day we pick it, and then we leave it in the bins macerating overnight. So the juice and the cool clusters and the stems can all mingle, and then we press it the next day. So it's a method called vino di una notte, or one night wine, which is an Italian way to make these kind of darker, more robust rosatos.
I love it. And, with the fires, Martha didn't make a post-flirtation rosé. Everything went into this rosé. Am I correct in that, Martha, from the 2020 vintage?
This, and we also do a Negro Amaro Rosato, which is a longer, that we age for about 2 years. But yeah, the small bits. So we actually, instead of post-rotation rosé, we didn't make red Nero d'Avola in 2020. All of it went into Rosato. So normally the block itself, we split, and we put some into Rosato, and then the others we ferment on the skins like you would a normal red wine. But because of the fires, we were just a little nervous to leave things on the skins. We picked these grapes the day the fires broke out in Mendocino County, actually. So they would have seen very little smoke contact in general, but better to be safe than sorry. And I really do love this wine, so I figured we could make more of it this year. So.
Yeah, it's dynamite. One of my favorite rosés in the store right now. Love what you've done with this Nero from California. Quick question. I know we got to get to the next one, but when you were in Sicily, does Cause make a rosé?
No, this was one of those things, and this is not the first time it's happened to me, where I make a wine and then I start reading more about things online and realize that this has been a traditional method in Italy for a long time, but I didn't know about it. So I did this because what happens, just a little like getting a little technical, is when you leave grapes and juice on the cluster, on the stem, it will actually lower the acidity a little bit. It'll buffer the acidity. So I was just kind of putting on my, like UC Davis enology hat and was like, okay, we don't add anything. We don't change the chemistry of the wine with additives. So what does the grape have that we can use? And it's the stem. So that was how I came to this method. Also, it's dry farmed, so the berries are really, really, really tiny. So if you want to get any juice for a rosé out of them, you actually do have to leave them on the stems and skins, let them break down a little bit so you can actually press some juice out of them. So it's kind of a practical reason too. And then I looked it up online and was like, oh, this is one of the major classifications of how Italians traditionally make rosé. So yeah.
And I'm gonna guess, I don't have any food in front of me right now, but it seems to be super food friendly across the board. I think this would go with just about anything that you put on a table.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, anything with a subtle smoke I've really liked with anything Nero d'Avola, but whether it's red or Rosato, I think is really nice. But really, that's, I think, one of the beauties about most, like the wines that we're trying tonight. They've got really nice acidity to balance food, and not a whole ton of tannin, so you don't get any interference with those flavors. So, but yeah, we have, salads with tart raspberries, so you can go with things that are kind of like pairs with like, or we have black cod and fried rice. This is nice with that style of dish. And like I said, anything with a subtle smoke. I had this with barbecue chicken the other night. It was really tasty.
Love it. Well, we got a couple cases of it in the store, so come get it while we got it.
Yeah, this wine has been really moving very quickly, the Rosato. It's something I'm really happy. I always wanted to, I love any type of rosé as much as the next person, but I really did want to show that we can make rosés that have a little more meat on their bones that could age if you wanted them to. This is kind of a fresh, fruitier one, but that rosé kind of has a place in terms of being a quality wine, like just as much as any white or red would.
Yep, agreed.
Cool. I'm gonna pop open the Patatino Nouveau.
Yeah.
And I love the story. You'll have to tell the group the story behind this, and also who did the label, because that's different than who usually does the labels, correct?
Yeah, I definitely will. So this, I'm very excited to try. I haven't tried this in a couple months, so really, really excited. But Patatino means little potato in Italian, and it's what mamas call their babes. It's like a little term of endearment. And the first year I made this, so I was in 2019, I was pregnant with my first and only child, and he was going to be born basically during harvest, towards the end, but pretty much during. So I was waddling around in my third trimester. Thank goodness. I mean, every pregnancy is different, but thank goodness I felt great. I was like hopping up and down on the forklift. I was still foot treading grapes. We were
oh my gosh.
I don't know.
How? Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I joke that he is a very energetic little child, extremely. And I joke that like he must have been like a little furnace inside of me, just like keeping me going. But a lot of people are like, yeah, he might have energy because you were so active. I was like, I think it's the other way around. So, you know, a lot of winemakers really like making like very deep, rich, dark reds to age, that will hopefully age until their child is, you know, 18 or so. I went the total other route. I was like, let's celebrate. So we made a Nouveau, which is basically like, if you were to take, it's a fully fermented wine, but it hasn't had time to age. So it's an unaged wine. Basically, if you were to like fill up a bottle from the tank right after fermentation is finished, is what a Nouveau is. So it's a little cloudy, it's a little fermenty, they're usually really crisp and tasty. I mean, I love drinking them. So yeah, so we bottled it on in 2019 on my son's due date, which is actually, I went into labor that night. It was a good little thing. And then we've just continued every year to bottle it on his birthday. So it's just like a little, you know, just a little celebratory moment for all the families out there and kiddos. And my husband drew the label, the little guy letting the balloon go. And he also drew the post-rotation labels, but all the other labels are done by another artist named Carolyn Haydu. So yeah. This year's Nouveau, it changes year to year depending on what grapes are really, honestly, just for me, what are just like so incredibly delicious right after fermentation that I want to put them in a bottle. So year to year, it'll change. This year it was 100% Nero d'Avola from 2 different vineyards. A little bit from Benson Ranch, which we just tried in the Rosato, and some from another vineyard close by that I also lease called Chiarito. And, you know, we made this with whole cluster Rosato, and then also some red that was fermented on the skins, but lightly, just for 4 or so days. So about half of the fermentation was on the skins. Yeah, and just to make a light, bright, juicy wine. So, and then we joke that this pairs with, because it's Patatino means little potato, any sort of potato you put on the table.
We got a few of them listed there for you.
And Martha actually has an additional like 2 lines worth on her website. So if you need more potato options, every potato option is on the website.
Yeah,
I mean, it's awesome.
We really wanted to have a potato party during Nouveau time, which is in November, Nouveau Day. But maybe this year, now that we're coming out of COVID, we can start having potato parties again.
That sounds so fun.
So what is it? I did you say son or daughter? I'm sorry.
Oh, a son. His name's August.
Okay.
Yeah.
When is his birthday?
It's October 23rd. So
Nice.
That's every year. This is bottled on October 23rd. And then goes out to the world shortly thereafter. And it's a wine. It's meant to be really, you know, fresh, light, exciting. Usually drink it within a year. Again, kind of the opposite idea of this, getting a wine to, which I think is amazing, but to age, you know, a birth year wine that August can try when he's 18. He'll have to try some other wines because we will include it.
I'd rather have a bottling celebration on my birthday every year than have a few bottles of wine to drink when I turn 18.
Yeah.
I feel like yours is better.
So yeah, and then this wine, you know, because it is kind of bottled straight from the tank, Nouveaus, like I said, they can be fresh, juicy, a little fermenty. They can also have a little bit of extra funk that I think is so intriguing, really keeps me going back for more. So yeah, they're again really fun, lighthearted wines. But
yeah, we look forward to this being released every year when it is. And I'm very, very pleasantly surprised that we still have a few bottles left in the store. If you love it, come get them because we'll be out of it soon. And then you got to wait till probably November before we see it in the state of Georgia for the 2021 vintage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious to hear everyone's what potato pairing suggestion that they would have with this.
So there's a restaurant down the street that does fingerling potatoes that are, I can't remember exactly his process, but it's basically like 3 kinds of preparation. They're definitely fried. They're super crispy. And then he puts fresh horseradish and a horseradish creme on it. I want this with that right now.
That sounds so good. So good.
Basically, how dare you speak that when we don't? We can't go get
I
it.
know, right? Restaurant Holmes, all of you who are in
Yes.
Alpharetta, Restaurant Holmes potato is the only recipe that's been on the menu since they opened just after us 3 years ago. And it's awesome. Get a bottle of this, go try the fingerling potatoes at Holmes.
Amazing. Yeah, a good potato recipe is like, yeah, it's a sacred thing. This reminds, so when I was working in south of France, there would be, you know, there were many moments of incredible hospitality and feats of beautiful French food, but a lot of the times people would bring a bottle of just really quaffable, delicious red wine, similar to this. You'd have maybe some frites, like some mussels, some frites, or even just like, yeah, you know, a potato dish or some bread and cheese, but it was very simple, like just a little bit of simple food put out. And yeah, everyone had a really good time. And it was one of those lessons for me that it's like, you can get together with friends and you don't have to have it be a huge ordeal. I always get a little stressed out when I'm having groups of people over for dinner or something. And I'm like, okay, I want to, you know, you want to pull out all the stops, but sometimes it's nice to just sit and relax and have a beautiful bottle of chilled red wine with little snacks. So
absolutely. What's your
Tater
favorite
tots.
potato recipe with this? Tater tots, yes.
Oh gosh.
Well,
Yeah, it depends. I have to say fingerlings, roasted fingerlings are some of my favorite. The like boiled, and then sometimes you can do boiled and smashed, like, and then, you know, re-crisped a little bit.
Yep.
I also am a total sucker for French fries. I just, there's a place close by to me in Sebastopol called Handline, and they do really, really delicious French fries. And then you can get like a fisherman's stew with it. I'm very into it. So
That sounds awesome.
cool. Okay, next up, the Mendocino Benchlands. So keeping with this theme of kind of light, bright, summery wines, the Mendocino Benchlands is, well, the name comes from this idea that a lot of the Italian immigrants that originally were planting grapes in Mendocino County, many of whom still tend their land and have grapes. You know, there's 3rd, 4th generation Italian farmers there, but they brought the tradition, their agriculture tradition, where of planting grapes and olives up in the kind of the hills, or the places where there's poorer soil, thinner soils, and then down in the valleys and the river valleys is where vegetables and other crops were planted that need a little bit like alluvial soil and rich soil. So, and you know, that Italian tradition it's this idea that not only can grapes grow in these areas, but actually the fruit that comes from these, what we call these uplifted benchlands in Mendocino. So they're little kind of almost plateaus above the river valley. Those poorer soils actually make better tasting grapes. You're not going to get as high of yields. And in Mendocino now, what we have is there are grapes planted all over the valley floor as well. They're higher yielding. So all of these grapes in this blend are from those uplifted benchlands, those poorer soils, kind of smaller yielding, but more concentrated and delicious fruit. So this is a blend of Petit Syrah, Zinfandel, and Neradavla, and comes from a few different vineyards that we've already visited through our tasting a little bit. And then the addition of Fox Hill Vineyard, which is also in the similar area to Benson Ranch and Chiarito. So these grapes, besides Nero d'Avola, which is very, very rare, I work with the majority of Nero d'Avola in California, although more and more people are planting it out. But Zinfandel and Petit Syrah have been around historically in California for a very, very long time. Petit Syrah is a cross that was actually bred in France in the mid 1800s and then immediately brought to California. And Californians went hog wild and planted it everywhere. And then kind of died down in France. You don't really find it there anymore. So it is one of those grapes that we kind of like to say is one of our historic grapes here. And it usually has really beautiful kind of blue fruit, almost like Ethiopian coffee notes. It's a really gorgeous grape, and it can range. We make this in a very light style, but Petit Syrah can also be a monster. It can be really tannic, aged for a really long time. So.
And Martha, am I remembering this correctly? This was inspired from your time at Cause in Sicily, from their Frappato and Nero blends, but with a little bit of a California take on some of their classic blends.
Totally, yeah. Mendocino Benchlands has always had a little bit of Nero d'Avola in it, and this idea. So there's something called Ceresuolo di Victoria. Ceresuolo means cherry in the local dialect, and it's really kind of, again, like a bright, light cherry sort of flavored wine is the result of this Nero d'Avola and Frappato blend. And so my idea was to make something that had Nero d'Avola in it and some of our more kind of classic California grapes and create something similar.
And for those of you who love this wine, we do have the Ceresuolo in the store as well currently, and usually have it in the store. It's really, really cool to drink these wines side by side to see who Martha studied under in Sicily, his blend, his classic, very, very famous Italian blend, and then to see her California blend utilizing the same winemaking philosophy with a completely different set of terroir, what those look like side by side. It's really, really cool. It's almost like seeing distant cousins from different places where you know that they share some DNA, but there's little subtle differences in their personalities and in who they are. Kind of the same way when you taste these two wines side by side.
Yeah. One of the things I really love about this wine and the way it turned out in 2020 is, for me, there is a quality to the wine that almost has like a little bit of like orange peel, like you put an orange twist on a drink. And it really reminds me of aperitivo, which is, this hour before you eat, where you have a drink, something kind of brighter, lower alcohol, like uplifting. But often you've used like Amaros or things, again, that has that orange flavor, and it kind of just, I know, it feels like Italian aperitivo to me, drinking this wine. So.
Yep. Agreed. Aaliyah, I have a question.
Yes.
What is Kahlua pork?
Okay, so thank you for asking, because the olive oil and orange cake and the salt and vinegar fries, those were direct from Martha's website. I did add Kahlua pork because in your description of this year's wine, along with the orange peel, little notes of maybe pineapple, and I just thought like a pineapple, a Hawaiian style pineapple pork.
Oh, yeah.
With this would just be so lovely. So I did go a little add on there.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I think pork in general too, like even the kind of salt and vinegar fries, if you did want to apply that, like Kahlua pork would be amazing. Pulled pork. I'm glad you asked this question too, because I was like, Kahlua pork, did I put that in the tasting?
No, it's not.
Do I have amnesia?
You made my job so easy, because usually I'm having to like think of something, but you had all the pairings. It was like, this is the best slide deck I've ever had to make. So easy. I do. Olive oil and orange cake though. What?
That sounds amazing.
Does that mean? What
Yeah.
is that?
So it is a dessert cake, and normally I tend to pair dessert wines with dessert. I don't usually pair still wines with dessert, but I really, there is again something about this wine. It's delicate enough and it has that kind of orange twist feel to it. So olive oil and orange cake is something that I've had. It's basically a white cake, your typical white cake. Sometimes people put a little bit of polenta meal in it if they want to. It's almost between, like a fluffy white cake and like a cornbread in terms of texture. And then it has some orange zest in it, and one of the fats is olive oil instead of butter. It's really, really delicious. So can be a nice, it's not overly sweet. It can be kind of nice, one of those nice cakes that bridge like savory and sweet together.
So that's everyone's homework, is learn how to make olive oil and orange cake, because that sounds amazing.
And bring it to Fermented.
And bring it
so
to
we can try
Fermented.
it. All right, Martha, I know you got to run. Thank you so much. For those of you on the call, we're going to finish up with our poll of which wine was your favorite, but we're going to let Martha go. She's got to go pick up her son. And we really appreciate you joining us. We love what you're doing. Thank you so much for these wines, for being an amazing human. And we can't wait to get out to Sonoma to come meet you personally and enjoy some of the wines and see where you're farming and where the magic really happens in the vineyard. So thank you. We'll see you later.
Much. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the tasting, everyone. I'm gonna go pick up the little Patatino, and I really appreciate all your time. So take care.
Thanks, Martha.
Bye.
All right, everybody else, let's figure out what your favorite was. Again, it's a tough one. Man, those were all awesome. And I love the different expressions of Nero. I love the post-fermentation white. We also have the post-fermentation red in this store. That's fantastic also. And we have the 100% Nero from 2019, the red, the full-bodied, the big boy. We've got, I think we just got another case of that as well.
And that one has tannin, correct, Adam?
And that one has tannin. That one's a little bit, it's got more body and it's got more tannin than the Mendocino Benchlands, which this vintage of Mendocino is a little bit more elegant than the previous vintage of Mendocino Benchlands. Going to be a little bit different every year, but yeah, the Nero's, it reminds me a lot of Ariana Occhipinti's Nero, with subtle differences. All right, we got people putting in orders. We got people putting in favorites. Alex, I need your favorite. Aaliyah, I need your favorite. And I need to figure out, actually, I know what my favorite is, but I'm going to hold off till we get some more votes in so that nothing is biased.
Oh,
mine's in there.
All right.
Alex
I don't
is
ever
in there.
look at the chat. Sorry.
And in terms of my favorite, I have not had, sorry, words. Okay. I haven't had the Rosato yet. I have a feeling it would be very high on my list, but of the ones I've had, Patatino for me, just crushable, chillable red. Gotta love it. Plus I love the story.
Yeah, that Patatino is awesome.
And so Alex did vote. So now you get to vote. I didn't see a Ben Dawes vote, but I think we have everybody else.
All right. Well,
no pressure, Ben.
I'm putting mine in with the Rosato this time. It's a
sweep.
It's a really tough choice between the Rosato and the Patatino, but it's Rosato. It was Rosato the winner.
Rosato is, yes, a sweeping winner today. Natalie needs a bottle. Stacy needs a bottle. I'm assuming Stacy, that's for the Rosato. But yeah, I'm just add me to the list. I'd like a bottle, please.
Absolutely. And then I think we've got about 6 left. I'll see if we can get a little bit more from the distributor. And yeah, Dynamite Wines, and such an awesome person. We love these tastings, and stay tuned. once we open up Flight Club, we're going to be doing these kind of tastings in person. There will also be a remote option if you want to join remotely, but we're going to do more of these style tastings, cast it on the TV, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're so excited for Flight Club. We're so excited for Fermented Canton. And just to give you guys a little update.
Have you told people about that?
I think we've told people about that. If we haven't told people about that, we're opening up a store in Canton, as well as Flight Club. I know, I'm pretty sure we did on one of these Zoom calls at some point in time. Flight Club will be coming early August. Fermented Canton will be coming early September. And we're just going to keep having fun, and we're just going to keep enjoying some amazing wines. Follow Martha on Instagram if you don't already, on Facebook if you don't already. She's awesome. Her wines obviously are really, really delicious. And she is the whole reason that we started Fermented was to support people like Martha, people who believed in transparency, in authentic winemaking practices, in not adding things. And so, our goal has always been to support these people. When you buy from us, this is who you're supporting in the end. Yes, you're supporting us. You're keeping us open. You're keeping our staff paid. You're keeping all of the beautiful things that we have at Fermented going, but you're also supporting down the line as well winemakers who are doing it the right way. People like Martha Stoumen. Next week we have, is it Brianne or Brianna?
I've been saying Brienne, so we can
Brienne.
clarify with her up front, yes. But Brienne Day.
I think that's correct. I'm terrible with pronunciations if you haven't figured that out already. She's located in Willamette Valley. She's amazing. We have absolutely fallen in love with her wines. And Aaliyah, you get all the credit for the day wines because you've been asking for them for quite a while now. And we were finally able to get a hold of some and pick them up. And we've been very, very happy with what's coming from that winery. And another amazing human being. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to build community around authentic wines and have some fun with it. So thank you again for all of your support. Aaliyah, Alex, thank you for all you do. Lauren, who's not on the call, thank you for all you do. And to all of our friends and family, thank you for supporting us and supporting these great producers. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and related to the day wines tasting next week, we were very intentional because we know that we've tasted quite a few of her wines over the last couple tastings, the orange, the red, the white. We tried to do a tasting of wines that you guys have not tasted yet.
And we do have that.
What do you mean? We will be doing that.
Have we? I don't think we've tasted any of these wines.
I know, that's what I'm saying, is that if you've been tasting day wines before, you've done the rouge, you've done the white, you've done the orange on past tastings, but for next week, they're all wines you guys have not tried before. So be back next week.
Yes, she's got a really cool orange wine called Tears of the Vulcan, which we have been saving for about 2 months for this tasting specifically. And all of her stuff is just as Martha and Scott, who's coming up from Jolie Lade, and all of the winemakers that we have on Zoom. These wines are very allocated, very limited. The sometimes 5 to 10 cases per wine come to the state of Georgia, and then we get a couple of those. So please join us next week if you can. Tell your friends about it, have them join us, and then once we open up Flight Club, we're going to be going to more of a hybrid tasting on Wednesdays where you can come in the store and taste, or you can come taste online as well. And again, all of our videos are available on Vimeo if you want to go back to anything, if you can't make a Wednesday tasting. So everybody have an awesome night. Thank you all very much, and happy Wednesday.
Stacy did ask, she's on vacation next week. Will the wines hold up for a week in the personal tasting kit in the fridge?
Yes, absolutely. When we fill those personal tasting kits, we fill them very full to the top, so they're good for I don't want to tell you to wait this long, but I think about 2 weeks is when I've come back to them to try them, just to test if they would hold up, and they hold up really well because of the limited amount of oxygen once we recap those little bottles. So yes, 1 week in the fridge, they will still be delicious. Again,